The Supreme Court denies with finality the House of Representatives' appeal to reverse the July 25, 2025 ruling declaring the articles of impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte unconstitutional. In a resolution made public Thursday, January 29, the Supreme Court unanimously rules that the fourth impeachment complaint transmitted to the Senate on February 5, 2025 was prohibited under Article 11, Section 3, Subsection 5 of the Constitution. The constitutional provision states that no impeachment shall be initiated against the same person more than once within a period of 1 year. The High Court clarifies several points regarding the initiation of an impeachment complaint. It rejects the House of Representatives' interpretation of initiation of impeachment. It says session days should mean calendar day in which the House of Representatives holds a session. The court says the first three impeachment complaints filed against the Vice President were not placed in the order of business within the required 10 session days. The decision also expands the March 2011 ruling on the Gutierrez versus House of Representatives. The decision states that an impeachment is deemed initiated for the purposes of the 1-year ban when a verified complaint is referred to the Committee on Justice. It is also deemed initiated even when a properly verified and endorsed impeachment complaint is not placed in the order of business of the House of Representatives within 10 days or referred to the Committee on Justice after it has been put in the order of business within 3 session days. The court also says the complaint is deemed initiated even when the House adjourns sine die without transmitting the articles to the Senate. The first 3 impeachment complaints were filed by civil society groups in December 2024. Duterte was impeached on February 5, 2025 after 215 House lawmakers filed and signed a 4th complaint. The 4th complaint was immediately transmitted to the Senate for trial. In July 2025, the Supreme Court eventually declared the impeachment against Duterte as unconstitutional. The House asserted that all impeachment complaints were acted upon within the required 10 session days, emphasizing that session days should not be confused with calendar days or working days. Vice President Sara Duterte says former President Rodrigo Duterte has no plans to change his legal counsel at the International Criminal Court despite calls from supporters urging him to do so. In a chance interview on Wednesday, January 28, the Vice President shares that she discussed the matter with her father during one of her visits at the ICC Detention Center in The Hague, Netherlands. According to the Vice President, her father won't replace his lawyers, but she says he gave them instructions.
At tinanong ko si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, sabi ko, exactly kung ano yung tanong ninyo, gusto mo ba palitan at hindi ka ba satisfied? Sabi niya, hindi palitan, pero meron siyang mga instructions na ibinigay kabahin sa legal team. So, hindi ko nasabihin kung ano yung mga instructions dahil ano naman ay hindi na mahalaga.
Calls have arisen to replace Rodrigo Duterte's counsel after the ICC Pretrial Chamber 1 recently rejected the team's request for an indefinite adjournment of proceedings over his alleged cognitive impairment. The ICC ruling stemmed from the findings of 3 court-appointed medical experts who unanimously determined that the former president was fit to participate in the trial. Rodrigo Duterte's lead counsel, Nicholas Kaufman, is challenging this decision. He claims that the ICC refused to consider a medical report provided by a defense neurologist and neuropsychologist. Duterte has been in ICC custody since March 2025 over alleged crimes against humanity committed during his administration's brutal war on drugs. Government records showed at least 6,000 deaths from Duterte's anti-drug campaign, while human rights groups estimate the death toll at 30,000 or more. The camp of Rodrigo Duterte is seeking the reversal of the International Criminal Court Pretrial Chamber 1's decision on the former president's continued detention. In a 6-page notice submitted to the ICC Appeals Chamber, Duterte's lead counsel Nicholas Kaufman says the pretrial chamber committed what he describes as an error of law and of fact. He says the pretrial chamber refused to consider, without proper motivation, a medical report from a defense neurologist and neuropsychologist. Kaufman argues that the pretrial chamber failed in its duty to assess whether there exists changed circumstances that would affect the necessity of detention. The defense says the aforementioned report was highly relevant to the assessment of Duterte's continued detention. The defense likewise claims that the pretrial chamber also committed a legal error when it refused to engage with the uncontested content of the medical report and the defense arguments. According to the Duterte camp's appeal, the dismissal of the defense's medical report is supposedly a rejection of the suspect's right to a fair hearing. Apart from these, they also argue that the chamber should have granted the defense's prior request that the court-appointed panel of experts issue a report on Duterte's current ability. With these, the defense is requesting the immediate interim release of the former president under the terms and conditions preferred by the state party identified in the first instance. The pretrial chamber 1 previously ruled that Duterte was fit to take part in the pretrial proceedings on his crimes against humanity case. The chamber took into account the medical assessment of the panel's independent experts and all relevant circumstances of the case. The start of Duterte's confirmation of charges hearing is scheduled on February 23. Resigned Ako Bicol Representative Zaldy Co is asking the Supreme Court to set aside a resolution issued by the Ombudsman that led to the filing of his graft and malversation charges. He filed on January 25 a petition for certiorari seeking a temporary restraining order and/or writ of injunction against Ombudsman Boying Remulla. His filing also reveals that the former lawmaker had been in Sweden this January. Co's exact whereabouts were unknown as he remains a fugitive facing charges before the Sandigan Bayan. Attached to the petition were hundreds of pages of annexes, including a certification dated January 15 that Co appeared before a notary public in Stockholm, Sweden. Beatrice Gustafsson stamped and sealed the apostille, which authenticates a public document. In filing the petition, Co accused Remulla of gravely abusing his discretion when the Ombudsman found probable cause in the charges and pursued the case despite failing to properly notify and refusing to furnish copies of the case records to the former lawmaker. Co also says the Ombudsman conducted the probe in undue haste. Led by Assistant Ombudsman Miko Clavano, the Office of the Ombudsman lodged the complaints against Co in the Sandigan Bayan in November 2025. It was the first batch of cases related to the flood control scandal to reach the anti-graft court. These cases were in relation to alleged anomalous flood control projects in Oriental Mindoro, including a road dike project worth 289 million pesos.